Yeah. 1 2 1 2. You know how we do with your boy BQ. It's the Impact Lounge. This is your Impact Wrestling review. And guess what? I'm actually getting online to do this a little early this week. So the last couple have been like the Monday, Tuesdays, here on a Saturday morning. Did a small upload on the channel earlier this morning, and now I'm back in the place to be to talk this Impact episode with you guys. I'm gonna put this out there right now. You can decide if you want to proceed forward listening to this podcast. I thought this. Remember, I said good things about the show last week. I thought this was the worst episode they have put on in years. So that's a disclaimer. If you're just like, you know what, BQ, I love this episode. I don't like the negative stuff, whatever, then you can just stop watching right now. I'm just gonna give you that right now. I'm not gonna like just destroy this from top to bottom, but there was like very little, damn cat, very little that I liked from this. I stopped watching it about halfway through, and then I was like, you know what? Let me turn the Brace for Impact podcast on, see what they think. Maybe am I being overly negative of this episode? You know, or is it just me? Am I having a bad day? Because I was having a bad day yesterday. Let me tell you, I got to work, and I don't like to bullshit and not get into Impact, but let me throw this out there. I get to work. On my drive to work, I realize I forgot my coffee. I get there, my heater's broken at work, and it's freezing, and it's just like one of those days. And then my lady calls me about an hour and a half into my shift and said, "Did you take my car keys with you by accident?" I look, and I've got her car keys in my pocket. It was like a really, really rough morning for me. And then I kicked on Impact, you know, when things slowed down. So then I ended up ordering myself coffee. Accidentally ordered an iced coffee, and again, it was freezing yesterday. So, rough morning. So then I put on Impact. I'm like, yo, this episode sucks. Am I just having a bad day? So, you know, I stopped at about halfway through, listened to Brace for Impact, and they agreed with me. I'll just put it out there like that. So, let's kick it off with something real quick, though, a little more on the positive side, before I destroy this episode. The Impact announced the Multiverse United. So they're kind of doing this multiverse thing WrestleMania weekend. It's been pretty good. The first one, even though they didn't call it that, was that Impact versus Lucha Underground one, which, you know, I always tell you guys I went to. Imagine going to your favorite sports team home game. And there's, you know, sometimes this happens in sports where there's a heavy visiting team influence, but imagine going to a sports game, your favorite team, and it's about 90% fans cheering for the other team. Like, that was the equivalent of going to that show. And I remember being very excited to go and really hated my experience there. They've done a little better since then with how they do this. It's not branded as, you know, Impact versus New Japan, because, you know, WrestleMania weekend, they're going to get the New Japan fans in there. So, but they're doing this Multiverse United. They announced Josh Alexander versus Kushida, which people are really excited for. Will Ospreay versus Mike Bailey, which that's wild. And depending on how good that match is, which it should be incredible, could really put Mike Bailey on the map, and you know, might help Impact it a little bit too. And you know what? There was one other match they announced, but the article I'm looking at here does not have it. I'm going to check this one other link real quick before I move on into this episode. Oh, Jeff Cobb versus Moose. So the New Japan guys, they like Moose a lot. So that should be a really, really good one too, because everything Moose does is incredible. So thanks for checking in. If you're just joining the stream or you're watching this post-stream, I did put the disclaimer out there that I despised this episode of Impact after a really good one last week. So if you don't want the negative, just tune out. So when I did last week's review, I had said, you know, listening to the Brace for Impact guys and the way they reviewed it, I was like, I don't know if I'm out, because I listened to the podcast before I watched the show. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to like this episode. And then I watched it, and it got off to a good start because that opening tag match was phenomenal. And if you guys remember, I said if I was tuning into Impact for this episode, I hadn't seen it in months, years. Maybe I'm watching for the first time. Casual viewer. Let's see what Impact's doing. If I were to watch that match, I would say, "Yo, Impact's." That would have been a statement match for me, and I'll be like, you know what, I'm gonna check out Impact going forward. I thought it was that impactful as a match, as an opener. The fans being engaged in it, and we could see the fans for once. The episode's still really dark for my liking, but I thought the experience of last week's show was just great. And I said, I'm curious to see what the viewership is going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if there's really a good holdover, maybe even a bump in viewership, because I really felt good about just the way the last one was, for the most part, laid out. Teasing Steph Delander, again, just that opening match, the main event. I thought it was a good show. So I said, yeah, I'm down for this. So fast forward to this week's episode. I started off kind of, I guess, kind of laughing at the initial Matt Cardona thing where he was looking for the where he was backstage and so here's your locker room and all that. Turn my mic down a little bit. I hope it wasn't too hot for you guys. Give me one sec. There we go. Oh, it's changing on its own. What the hell? Okay. But anyway, so this initial episode, this initial segment of the episode where it kicks off, and it's Matt Cardona, and he's walking backstage, and he's looking for his locker room, and they give him, so here's a private dressing room for you, shrimp cocktail and everything. I knew where it was going because I knew they were going to call him Mr. Hendry, and they did. And so even though that opening segment was a little corny, like I actually did kind of find it funny at the same time. And then the episode continues, and it's bad comedy. And I thought in 2022, I really feel like they got away. They did a pretty good job getting away from bad comedy. I thought they did an excellent job with that. They got rid of a couple guys, cut down on the segments, got a little wrestling centric for my taste, but they did a good job of it. And this year they are kind of doubling down on bad comedy, nostalgia. And this doesn't even include Santino, who I like and find funny. So if you think I'm including him in this, I'm not. I actually find him funny too. But this episode, if I were to watch, remember I said last week, if I hadn't watched Impact and I tune in for this, I'd be like, I'm gonna watch what's going on next week. This episode came off like a cheap imitation of Monday Night Raw. In the first 15 minutes, we have several bad comedy skits. We have old WWE wrestlers, people who the WWE audience remembers as jobbers in heavily featured matches. Now, with all that being said, I love everything like Brian Myers does, and I actually like Dango. I like these guys. I am not saying I have negative opinions of these guys, because they are guys I like. But if if I'm watching and I'm tuning in and I haven't seen this product before or haven't in a long time, every bit of TNA stank was on the first half of this episode. And then they start getting into what I was looking forward to, and that was bad too. And then they start getting into the main event, which was okay. So I'm not gonna say everything about this was absolutely horrible. But this was not good. This is not the type of episode that you're going to build an audience with. On the Brace for Impact podcast, they made a point here which I fully agree with. The weekly show is not a good representation of what Impact delivers on pay-per-views and the monthly specials, the Impact Plus stuff. They're two totally different companies almost. Yes, they are building towards some of these matches. And we get to the pay-per-views, and it's this very like sports, serious, competitive atmosphere. And the fans for this one were dead for the most of the episode. Now remember, this is probably the second half of a day of tapings, so they've calmed down. I would imagine in the next episode they're going to be fired up again. But just there's bad promos. It just it was awful, and it just doesn't represent the pay-per-views, the hard to kills, the slammiversaries, like the product they deliver on those, and even the monthly specials, which for my taste are about an hour too long, but they're always really, really good. I think there was one, it might have been the last one they did in 2023. I remember I wasn't a big fan of it, but besides that, I mean, those they kill it. And it's not to say you can't have a little bit of lightheartedness and comedy. What I said a couple of weeks ago was that the company is too small and the roster is too small to say, okay, we're going to have something for everyone. Okay. WWE, AEW can get away with that because they have so much surplus in every area. Impact, as a smaller company, has to decide what is our niche, however you want to say it. What is our target audience? And we have to build a product for that. Okay. Let's say the Pop TV era when that kicked off, because that's when I started podcasting. There was Rockstar Spud on the show, and there was Grado. And those were two guys, legitimately funny guys, who were kind of the comedy relief for the show. The rest of the show there was no comedy. You know what I mean? So those guys work in their role. Like Swinger works in his role. But when there's like too much of it, it's the authority, it's Swinger's, partner, or any segments that he, when you brought in Madison Rayne and she was hanging out with them, like it starts branching off into just bad comedy all over the place. And I don't think that works with a company the size of Impact. You have to say, I know this is my target audience and I have to deliver a show for them. I can have a little bit of, bad comedy. I can have a little bit of this and that and spookiness. You can have a little bit of it. Okay. That's why, like Decay worked so much early on. They weren't really doing the spooky stuff, but in comparison to the rest of the roster, they were similar to like the Broken Matt Hardy, it wasn't. And then even Su Yung, when she came on, but then the Undead Realm branched into Rosemary and Havoc and Father James Mitchell and then Madison Rayne at one point. And it's just, they just have to decide what kind of show do we want to deliver, because what they're doing, this is not a representation of what they are. It's not. It's very much like we're phoning it in, and then we're going to deliver it at the pay-per-views. Even the commentary, it's been a while since I complained about commentary. They're starting to do like silly banter back and forth, like Josh Matthews was doing at the end, like the stuff that was like really annoying me and getting away from like the action, So I don't know. This episode was really rough for me. And I said I was going to try to start watching the BTI stuff, but I was so just turned off by the episode that I was like, I'm not doing BTI, which was Mike Bailey defeating Rush Sting. I mean, we all know what that freaking outcome's going to be. And then he accepted John Gresham's challenge after that. So remember what, like I say, whenever someone grabs a microphone after the match and cuts a promo, it lets us know that the match we just saw was a joke or it wasn't serious. Because Mike Bailey's not going to beat, Kenny King and then get on the microphone and call out Josh Gresham, So, man, this kicks off with Brian Myers versus Dirty Dango. So last week we have that awesome opening tag team match. And this week, again, I'm just saying, put yourself in the mind of someone who's just changing the channels, sometimes sees what Impact's doing. And it's Brian Myers versus Dirty Dango. Two guys I like. But remember, just get in the mindset of someone who's not super familiar with what Impact's doing. These guys come out. And first of all, Tom Hannafin, Lewis from Alliance Pro Wrestling pointed this out to me. He is constantly saying, first time ever matchup. Which, yes, we want to promote first time ever matchups. But not when it's Brian Myers versus Dirty Dango. He said this 5 times throughout the episode. At one point that we counted. At one point, he did it 3 times in the course of 2 minutes. Pointed out, new match. First time ever matchup. Let me pull up this graphic real quick for you guys. Forgot to upload it already, so there it is. So Lewis actually, he tweeted him, "You do a fantastic job for Impact Wrestling, but maybe ease up on the words first time ever matchup." And this guy actually responded, "Why?" The reason being is because when you beat stuff to death, it loses its impact. It loses its importance. First time ever matchup in the main event, that's something else. When you are trying to convince us that watching these 2 former WWE jobbers wrestling for the first time is something we should get excited about, that's no bueno. All right. Dango is almost the same gimmick as Fandango, but it is watered down and it is half-ass. So you tuning in to Impact, and this is what you see. This is what kicks it off with. And on top of that, they tell you that the winner of this will advance to the 4-way number 1 contenders match for the world title. All right. That's how we're kicking off the show. So we watch the match. It's okay. Brian Myers wins. He is the number 1. He's going to, to this number 1 contenders match. Like, we knew Brian Myers was going to win this match. And then the bad comedy continues. Giselle Shaw's walking around backstage, and they're using extras a lot now. And I don't know if they're backstage workers, wrestlers. I don't know. I don't even care. I will say that the acting on that side has been better than usually who they bring in for the Impact skits. Like at one point they used to have this doctor. I'm not talking about Dr. Ross. It was this other guy that used to, again, walk around with a fucking lab coat. That's because that's what we wear in sports medicine. They had that dude. They had I don't know. They bring some people in. Remember the Tessa Blanchard segment when she went in the restaurant, which was fucking hilarious. All the acting was horrible that was interacting with her. So they're doing better with that. But she's going around and 8th grade lunchroom, walking around and knocking people's meals over. Jai Vidal's dressed like he's about to wrestle a match. And then Santino shows up out of the blue because he hangs out in catering. And this is like what they did with Scott D'Amore. Like he just was in every place at the same time. Sometimes he was in his office, but wherever the action was, there was Scott, and we're kind of like getting that with Santino a little bit. And Deanna comes, and Deanna has never done a segment like this where she like spills a bowl of chili in Giselle's face and is fake laughing. She has never done anything like that. They have never put her in that kind of role. That is like, first of all, former WWE person. I know that she didn't really do anything over there, but they know her. And they know, she's putting on crazy matches. The people who saw her on AEW versus Mercedes Martinez, Deanna can go. And she's backstage doing bad comedy with food, like WWE food fight level. If you've seen those before, how bad those always are. Um, and then they make a match for no surrender, heel versus heel. So I don't know if Deanna is. I don't want to say she's going babyface, but what this tells me is that Deanna's in the last year of her contract. Because they took her option, which they may let her out of at this point, and they're like, "Yo, we have nothing for you," and she's like, "Cool, I'm also gonna phone it in because I was expecting to be a free agent around this time." The only reason I didn't totally hate this is because I like everyone involved. That's the only reason, you know. But so now we start off Matt Cardona comedy backstage, two WWE jobbers, bad comedy backstage after that. And then we get Gia Miller interviewing Trey Miguel, who I really like what he's doing as a heel. And I even like what he's doing with Decay right now. I wouldn't be surprised if this was, you know, if this is eventually going to introduce, uh, the Rascals back on the scene. So I like, I wanted them to do something with Steven and Taurus. So it gets spooky and it's backstage and it's, the lights are going out, it's flickering and this, and Trey Miguel is scared like a child. There's a way of doing this of, hey, we're playing mind games with this dude. But I mean, putting his hands over his ears and walking around yelling. And this is not indicative of how good they've been doing with Trey Miguel as a heel. So now after all the bad comedy, this falls into that category because it's bad community theater. And we get a match. Tommy Dreamer, old WWE people trying to keep ECW alive, all that. Tommy Dreamer and Mickie James, where WWE, it just comes off like I'm not putting Mickie James in this category, but at this point, it's like the WWE reject show. That's what it looks like what TNA, in a lot of the bad years came off like. Now, Mickie James is not in that category. Everyone loves Mickie, but it's a intergender tag team match, which a lot of people don't like. I don't really care personally. And they're taking on the Good Hands, who nobody knows. I guess they're paired with Bully Ray, but they've never actually been seen hanging out or cutting a promo together. It's just like they show up to help him or something like that. But they're not doing a good job of making these guys simpatico with each other. But we got these guys. We've never seen them win a match. We don't know their finishers. We know nothing about them. And I kind of like them. I kind of do. It starts off, they're cutting John Skylar's cutting a promo. And he's done a couple of promos in the past that I'm like, he's got something here. I like him. He's cutting a promo, and it is Wrestling 101. The cesspool of Florida or whatever. Now, granted, I lived in Florida for like 7 years. It's not probably not my favorite state in the world, but it just didn't work. It just came off bad. And then the match was actually a little better than I was going to give it credit for. The stereo DDT, and you know me with DDTs, but this stereo DDT they did at the end, where Mickie hit her horrible DDT and Tommy Dreamer hit his, and they timed it perfect. That looked amazing. Like they really nailed that. But clearly they won the match. And Skylar and Hotch just look. I can't imagine them ever winning a match. I just don't see a scenario where they beat anybody on this roster. I don't know who they possibly could beat. But yeah, but I'll give it props. And then after the match, Bully Ray, and again the WWE. When I say it comes off, I'm not saying any of these people are WWE rejects because I don't use that term and mean it. I'm just talking from the perspective of someone who has a certain idea of what Impact is and what it isn't. Like they think they know everything. It's the WWE reject place. And here comes Bully Ray. And Bully Ray's been doing good work. But this is, it's just, here he is to go with Tommy Dreamer and all these guys they have on screen. Then Masha Slamovich comes out. She hits Mickey James with the sack of shit slam, and they go from there. Tom Hannifin lets us know at that point that this is a first time ever matchup. And then we get Santino again, the WWE reject thing. I'm going back to it, but I'm trying to paint a picture to you guys of what someone is seeing when they see this episode. It's backstage. It's him and Johnny Swinger. And if you don't get Johnny Swinger, you're probably like, what the hell is this? But, for the most part, he does a pretty good job. And here comes Dango, and he's selling nothing. He just wrestled. He's selling nothing. This was like when Ashley Dubois a couple of weeks ago had that match. And then forgot who she wrestled. And then Trey Miguel's talking to her backstage the next segment, and she's selling nothing. He walks in like he just won the match earlier. He's happy as a pig in shit. And, and then they set up Zicky Dice. Told Swinger, I know someone you can beat to jumpstart your road to 50 wins. I know who it is. I saw the spoiler. And it really fits into everything that I was saying is like wrong about this episode so far. But, whatever. It's a one-off type of thing. They're doing a lot of walking backstage in ballrooms with chairs stacked up and everything. So anyway, from here, this is the best part of the show. And this is the video package with Rich Swann reliving his run as Impact World Champion. And Drew McIntyre did something like this. I not that I saw it, but I saw some articles about it. I don't know if it was on the show or, he was just saying that in general off screen. But a very similar, like I won the title, there was no one there. And then Swann is taking you through. I won the belt. There was no one there. There was I beat this guy, beat that guy. I did this. I unified the titles, and then I moved on to face Kenny Omega, and I let everyone down, and I got my butt kicked. This was what I said at the time. You guys remember at the time that Swann lost the title, this is what they needed for him. It works now. Don't get me wrong. It works now. But you saw how they dropped the ball and he lost all momentum after that Kenny Omega match. This is what they needed after that. I let everyone down. And then you retool the character from there. You can still dance and do all that. But you got to retool it to an extent after that, because the Impact made him look they allowed him, I should say, to look very weak in that whole thing. Instead, they feed him to W. Morrissey the next month. And then it's like downhill. So they're starting to get Swann built up again. It's been a long time coming, but they're finally doing it. This was the best part of the episode. And it shows that they're capable of putting really good stuff together. This is more of a representation of what, No Surrender is going to be, and what Rebellion's going to be, and what they do when they do monthly shows. This is a representation of that. Not the backstage shit that they're doing right now. And then it starts going downhill again. And it's Steph Delander making her debut against Jordynne Grace. Her hair looks horrible. I thought the promo was okay. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was groundbreaking. I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was okay. But when she cut the promo and said Jordynne Grace is going to lose in my debut match, I knew that she was going to lose at that point. I talked about this last week. They have this really weird way of debuting people. That if you're not someone there on a very short-term contract from another company, or that's not part of the roster, like those people come in and we know their moveset, and they are destroying people on the roster. People sign there long-term. Then they bring in people who I think she signed. I think. But they bring her and the Skylers and the Hotches and the I forgot the guy that wrestled last week. He's been doing kind of like enhancement talents the last couple weeks. And then the Price kid that they signed, and then God, the other guy who has been on the roster forever and hasn't wrestled on TV yet. Like these guys who you're attempting to build something with and be part of your, Masha was the exception, and Killer Kelly to an extent as well. But other than that, it's like these are these people that we're gonna have around for a while, and we don't know what their finishers are. We don't know their move sets. We have no reason to get behind them because they don't get a showcase match. And I get when you come in and you're new, you shouldn't like be running through the roster. That's not what I'm saying. But you got to have at least kick it off with a nice little showcase match, something is, so we can see what you can do and what your brand is. She comes in, she comes down first, so she should have come down second, but I understand she needed to cut a promo, whatever. She comes down, it's not delivered as anything important, and then she's wrestling Jordan Grace, and this was like a Jordan Grace showcase, Jordan Grace statement match. Like she needed this win. Like she's not even in a knockouts title picture at the moment. I know they're texting, oh, she's gonna get her contracted obligated rematch. Like Jordan Grace needs no push. She needs nothing. She doesn't prove anything to anybody at this point. And it's not to jump the gun. Like maybe this leads to something, down the road for Steph Delander. But she's playing from behind now. Like all we can go on is the present. We're not watching Impact for another week. All we can do is live in the present. And they made her she didn't look special. She didn't look like, they did a video package. They teased her showing up. She didn't do anything that we haven't seen from Savannah Evans in the ring. She's now playing from behind. So even if she goes and she has another match and it's against Alicia Edwards next week and she beats her ass, she's still 1-1. She's still 500, batting 500. Well, I guess that's good in baseball, but that's not necessarily a good record in wrestling. She's playing from behind now. Again, we don't know what the plan is, but is there any evidence from what they've done in the past when someone comes in and just looks like shit like this off the bat that it's going to be all uphill from there? Even Rohit Raju, he had to get himself over because he was just taking L's. They're like, hey, this guy just won gut check or whatever the hell, Global Forged, comes in taking L's immediately. So I really don't understand. I really don't understand what the hell they're doing here, but I was very disappointed. Like I just come from this era of wrestling where it's, hey, someone's making their debut and you're gonna watch them come in and whoop some ass and see what they can do and see what their finisher is and all that. I like the Powerhouse Predator thing. I like that whole brand and everything, but what was the point of all this? What is the point of this damn cat continually jumping up here? What is the damn point? We'll see. Then Matt Cardona, more on Matt Cardona, and Matt Cardona makes things work. He makes everything work that he does, but he's throwing out the Impact Zone, complaining to management that he'd rather change in the parking lot, and then they put him in the parking lot. And of course, Impact put all this stuff on Twitter, on their Twitter account. All these bad segments that I'm talking about made Impact social media feed. There is no way that this is making, oh yeah, we're gonna watch this now. We definitely gotta watch Impact. And then Gia Miller interviews Josh Alexander, and he's talking about, I'm gonna have a real good match with Rich Swann. Rich Swann is the best part of all this. Josh Alexander, it works when Impact has the crutch. I've talked about the crutch of when we need some drama, bring in the wife. When that's going on, Josh is great. And something like this, he's just a wrestler. And he's going to have a good wrestling match. Kenny King comes in, and he comes off like the bigger star, in my opinion. He's such a good talker. And then Swann comes in, and Swann sounds great. And Josh Alexander backpedals and steps, the world champion. It's between you guys, steps out. It is what it was. I still think Josh versus Swann is going to be the Impact match of the year. And then the match that I'm actually looking, this is the worst card they have put together in God knows how long. This match comes out, and this is the one I want to see. This is the one I care about. The Death Dolls defending the titles, of course, versus Jessica's in a Death Dolls versus Killer Kelly and Taylor Wilde. So I'm intrigued. I'm like, okay, these two are going to be on the same team. We need tag teams. Okay, cool. Let's see what happens. They got the Death Dolls entrance right this time, where they do the stomp and the camera shakes. Like, that's cool because no one has good entrances with Impact. They're very standard, very bland. I like this every time. Death Dolls, and then the stomp and good shit, real good shit. And the way Rosemary comes out yelling and everything, like, it's cool. So they're doing Freebird Rule, and Rosemary and Taya are on the same team. So that's the team we really like to watch. Versus Killer Kelly and Taylor Wilde. And Killer Kelly is someone that they have really done a good job with up to this point. And she is the one. Decent match, okay? Decent match. She's the one who takes the L in this. I don't think Killer Kelly's ever lost. I don't think we've ever seen her pinned, submitted, anything like that. Clearly not submitted. I don't think we've ever seen her lose. And then she just, she takes this L. Now, I've got a lot to say about Impact finishers. I mean, if we think about what we saw this so far, we saw Brian Myers win with a clothesline. We saw the DDTs, the Grace Driver, which is okay, but a lot of wrestlers have very, very similar finishers to that. I thought the finisher that they used, the Road to Valhalla with the sit down face buster, was a really badass move. I thought that looked great. It was delivered well. No, it wasn't botched. No one stumbled. Like, it was perfect. It was just unfortunate was Killer Kelly on the other end of it. So I'm like, why is Killer Kelly losing? And she's getting into this feud now with Taylor Wilde, who wouldn't tag in because she was reading the tarot cards. And I know this is like really how Taylor Wilde is, Like, if you listen to our podcast, she's into all this shit. It's not like a fake gimmick. But it's also not good. I think it can be good, but it's not good. Right now, it is not good. It is bad. It was cringe. The way she was just didn't want to tag in and showed her the devil card. I don't know if they were trying to tie in the devil with the Father James Mitchell thing. I think that was the attempt. I don't think it came off good, though. I don't think they did a good job of that, telling that story, but I think that's what they were going for. I mean, and then there's a segment after the match. And remember, I just said it earlier, when there's a segment, when there's something after the match, it usually means, hey, the match we just gave you was a waste of your time. Father James Mitchell comes out, and this is one of the better parts of the show, because shouts out to Godilla for spoiling this for me, because I avoid all spoilers. I thought this episode was so bad, though, that I turned it off at one point, and I told him I turned it off, and he understood that as me. I wasn't going to finish the episode. So then he tells me the Hex showed up, and I said, thanks for the spoiler, because I would have popped. These are my girls. And I've been saying for a while now that the only good angle they can do for the Knockouts Tag Team Championship at this point is to bring the Hex on, because that's, my opinion, the best women's tag team on the scene. So finally they did this. This cat. So finally they do it. And I'm really looking forward to this. I bet this is at No Surrender, though, which I wish it was at the damn pay-per-view, but they're not going to build it. Every time there's an angle for the Knockouts Tag Team Championships, they just defend the title ASAP, and then they have no challengers. And this was an example of it. Killer Kelly and Taylor Wilde, fresh matchup. I'm pretty sure Tom Hannafin said it was a first time ever matchup. It's a fresh match. We get it announced last week. I mean, it builds last week, and then we get it the next week. I mean, there's absolutely, they rush everything with this division, and we're gonna come to the point where they're gonna have nothing for these girls with the belts. So I'm sure this is gonna be at no surrender. It really needs to be at the pay-per-view. I always say every title doesn't have to be on the line at these monthly specials. They don't have to be. Like this episode of Impact, they main evented with the Digital Media Championship. You can, I wouldn't recommend that on a regular basis, but you can defend other titles. It doesn't have to be every title at everything, but they disagree. I guess the champion has to defend the title every 30 days, right? That's how it goes. Old school booking. So the Hex comes out though. I wish this happened last week when the crowd was a little hotter, but I'm really excited for this. Very, very excited. I mean, these are my girls. So I hope that they win the belts. I can see them winning the belts and then just doing a rematch at the pay-per-view. Impact doesn't do a lot of pay-per-view rematches. If you notice that, the majority of matches are this will make Tom Hannafin happy as shit. The majority of matches are first time ever. We haven't seen the matches before at the pay-per-views. They do a pretty good job with that. It's not like WWE do, Randy Orton lost the title to Cena at the pay-per-view, and the next pay-per-view they're gonna have a rematch. Like, they don't really do that. So that's good. I'm not really a big title, obligated title rematch type of dude anyway, but that's what I think will ultimately happen here. I'm pretty sure that the Hex will take the titles from them, but so I thought it was cool. I don't know that if Father James Mitchell was necessary for this. I thought it would have been a little more impactful if the Hex just jumped him after the match. And then Eddie Edwards is backstage with Raj Singh, and he says he's willing to pay Shira whatever it takes to take out PCO. Because again, Shira, who some NXT fans know, is wrestling a number one contenders match for the world title for the 4-way against PCO. At no point, I'm sure Eddie Edwards does okay financially because I'm sure Impact pays him well. But at no point have they ever presented him on screen like he had a lot of money. That he can pay whatever it takes. They've never presented him like that. I think he took the green tips out of his mohawk, by the way. So that's good on him for that. And after this backstage segment, it's another backstage segment around a bunch of chairs. They're just like walking the halls of this place. I mean, surely there were some nicer areas to do these promos, but whatever. And it's, because Sheeta's back there, the Bullet Club comes out, and long story short, they're gonna have at the tapings. I believe they said it was gonna be at the taping of Las Vegas. Kenta will be aboard, so I'm looking forward to that because I like Kenta quite a bit. As much as I've never been, real big fan of what goes on in New Japan and Noah and all these places, like Kenta's someone that I like quite a bit. And then we get Shira versus who we have not seen wrestle on TV and God knows how long, is in a number one contenders qualifier match. And it's versus PCO. The only real good thing I have to say about this is that PCO was over and that his PCO salt is a great move. I mean, it's a moonsault. It's not, but he puts just the fact that he does it and is as accurate as it is, and it's hard hitting. Like, it's a great move. I'm not like his biggest fan in the world, but he's over with the people. I want whatever he's doing with Eddie Edwards to like be over so bad, though. So bad. And then there's another, they're doing a good job interweaving a story throughout the show. I think that's always a positive thing. But it's Matt Cardona again, talking to, Gia, and then he catches Brian Myers singing along to the show. If this isn't Matt Cardona's last match in Impact, I don't know what's going to be. Because that's exactly how this came off the entire episode. This came off like they were writing him off TV, but they made him a joke. They made him Zack Ryder this whole episode. And I say it every week. It's a real missed opportunity not to tap into what Matt Cardona was doing in other places on the Indies and NWA. They're not tap into that. Um, major players could have been something really cool on the show, and it's just, they wanted to tap into their WWE characters more than what they're trying to do with their careers going forward. It's very going backward instead of moving forward. And then Frankie Kazarian backstage with Callahan. And this is leading to Frankie Kazarian versus Big. So that'll be okay. Ooh. Then they played We Own the Night for about what seemed like 5 minutes, showing matches. They let us know Rich Swann was colliding with Kenny King for the first time ever. And then Eddie Edwards is going to take on Heath. Like, we know he's going to win that match. Macklin's going to take on Rhino. We know he's going to win that. Or I don't know, maybe PCO cost Eddie Edwards the match, because I don't believe they're going to actually have PCO and Eddie in this match together when they're trying to kind of do their own angle. But then if Heath wins, we're going right back to the WWE reject. Again, I'm not calling him that. I'm just saying the perception of Impact. And they're going to see Rhino on the show. You know what I'm saying? MLW's ratings came out, and they were not as high in viewership as Impact. But in the target demo, the key demo, like they killed them. Impact is not producing a show that the younger audience would want to see. They're doing a better job of it, I think. But, when you're bringing in all these guys in their 50s, God, that time they brought in Ken Shamrock for which felt like 3 years, who are you trying to appeal to? MLW shouldn't be beating you in any area. But they did. And then as the main event, I wouldn't recommend putting the Digital Media Championship in the main event on a regular basis, but it's Joe Hendry versus Matt Cardona. And this was actually a pretty good match. And again, they kind of interweave the storyline throughout the episode leading up to the main event. I think that's good. I think that is a very good creative. Even though it was a little bit more of a comedy thing, whatever. But it leads to the main event. Remember what I told you guys last week. When there's a main event that Impact doesn't consider it to be main eventers, there was going to be an angle after the match. They're not going to go off the air with Joe Hendry holding up the Digital Media Championship. Like, hey, watch this. But the match was okay. Brian Myers comes in, accidentally hits the roster cut on Cardona, and I thought the finish was good, though. I thought the way he hit the standing ovation for the win was good. But this really came across like Matt Cardona is no longer part of this company going forward. I mean, there's no way. What the hell could you possibly do with him? This was almost on the level of killing him off the screen like they do, because career-wise, they killed him. They made him look ridiculous. He catches a spear by accident. This came off like I'm putting someone over on the way out the door. And then at that point, it's just going to be Brian Myers by himself, and it's not the major players anymore. And we'll see. We will see. But this episode, folks, was not good. Not good at all. And then they go off the screen with Edge's Bitch, which is funny, which is a good show. I mean, a good song. And I understand the Moose angle at the end coming in. I get it. He's part of this. He's part of the story. But this was just very bad. This was very bad. And it's just not a representation of what they do, of what, if you're trying to sell a pay-per-view or sell the Impact Insider and check out this monthly special, like, this is not a representation of that in any way, shape, or form. This is like, we are, remember about a year ago, maybe it was not that long ago, I said, is Impact adopting the Ring of Honor strategy where the shows don't matter and we're just going to sell people on these main events? Maybe. But the show still has to be good. It can't be bad. Like this was awful. This was awful. And I'm very disappointed because I thought they just really put their best foot forward last week. And then, this week we get this. Rich Swann wasn't wrestling on the show. Even though I don't want Josh wrestling on every show, like he wasn't wrestling. Eddie wasn't wrestling. Callahan didn't. None of these people who are like in the main event of this show, of this company, wrestled on this show, with the exception of Jordan Grace and I guess Mickey James. But we're talking about knockouts here. Other than that, it was just this mid-card heavy show where they're trying to convince us that we care about these people. And because they put all the bigger stars in that 6-way match, you've got these like dudes who don't even wrestle on TV hardly, trying to qualify for this number one contenders 4-way. So I like the concept of the qualifying and all that. That's much. If they were just like, hey, there's gonna be a fatal 4-way between Brian Myers and this and this and this, whoever wins. If they were to just announce it out of the blue, probably be pretty pissed off. Like, what is the criteria for this match? So I like them qualifying. Don't get me wrong, but when you use all your good wrestlers, I guess Eddie Edwards has 2 cracks at this thing, because he was in the last match and he's in this one too. Rhino has 2 cracks at this thing. Okay, cool. Just real bad episode. I know I keep repeating that, but it was really disappointing. I hope that what they do next week, I think Kenny King and Rich Swann's going to be really, really good next week. So I'm looking forward to that. And I have no reason to look forward to Steph Delander next week. I guess I'm looking forward to what the Hex does if they're on the show. I would imagine they will be. Looking forward to that. But they just did not. They phoned this one in, and it's disappointing after last week's episode. But that's all I got for you guys this week. I'm your boy BQ. Thanks for checking in. I'm glad I was able to do this a little bit earlier this week. So hopefully you guys appreciate that as well. I'm your boy. I am BQ. I will talk to you next time. I'm out. Peace.